My guest today is an expert in an area that is of extreme importance to us, and that's in the proliferation of nuclear weapons, but also in the control of small arms. Mr. Ambassador Sergio Duarte is the High Representative for the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs. Ambassador Duarte is a Brazilian national who represented Brazil as ambassador to Nicaragua, China, Canada, Austria, and various other countries. Ambassador Duarte, we're talking today about two very important topics, obviously, with nuclear proliferation, nuclear weapons. Now, when we think of nuclear weapons, we think of these horrific weapons that can create so much devastation. If we just put them in comparison to what happened in World War II, let's think back to that horrific experience where over 60 million people died, Europe lay in ruins, parts of Asia had been destroyed. It was a tremendous suffering going on around the world. Yet during World War II, they used conventional weapons. They used weapons that would not begin to classify as nuclear. Today, of course, we had the two atomic bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But to talk a bit about how we should perceive nuclear weapons today in comparison to the devastation that took place in Europe and Asia, and that was horrible at that time, but in comparison, if we had an exchange of nuclear weapons today, it would be far more devastating than what we've had. We would have nuclear winter, we would have perhaps the elimination of the human race, but put that in perspective for us if you could.
It is that nuclear weapons are so much different from any other types of weapons of mass destruction, like chemical weapons or biological weapons, in the way they destroy. And this is why their existence is today the main threat to mankind as a whole. And it's not only to countries specifically, but to mankind. I think we have to do something, and of course the international community has been trying to do something about that. The United Nations has been trying, of course, to do something about that. But we are only in the beginning, I would say, of our successes.
Well, there are some rays of hope that are out there right now, and of course you mentioned the United Nations a minute ago. We'll talk about that, and also talk about a recent meeting between the President of the United States and the President of the Russian Federation. But let's talk about what the UN is doing. I know Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has developed a 5-point proposal on how to deal with the nuclear proliferation, nuclear arms. What are some of those points, and what is your office doing to help move this discussion and to implement them?
Well, the first point of his proposal deals with the need for the countries, particularly those who possess nuclear weapons, to comply with their obligations. They have assumed obligations, particularly under the Non-Proliferation Treaty, to work towards a world free of nuclear weapons. And of course, those who possess those weapons are the ones that bear the most responsibility. But all countries that are parties to the Treaty on Non-Proliferation, these are virtually all countries in the world, with 3 exceptions, they have an obligation to continue working to that. For a number of years, we had a sort of a stalemate in the main body charged with those negotiations, which is the Conference on Disarmament in Geneva. And now, because of the change in attitude in some of the most important countries, the most important possessors of nuclear weapons, we have a ray of hope.
Considering the present world situation, the possibility of a nuclear catastrophe is more apparent than ever before. A Pandora's box has been opened, and now it is up to all of us to close it. This is not a problem that politicians can solve. Our salvation depends on the transforming power of human hearts. Only in the center of our being will we be able to find the guidance necessary to prevent our extinction.
Death of a battlefield. Curdling cold is this place of vanishing souls, in fright as they blanket the air of day like locusts in the dead of night. Beneath the breath of stillness of death, deep, deep inside is a slowing heartbeat and a single soldier's cry. Curdling cold is the air of vanishing souls in fright, is the death of a battlefield because of a single soldier's cry.